practice. So now let's talk about spring practice a little bit. Let's start out talking about some of the kids who really stood out for you this year. Let's start on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, most definitely. Let's start on the back end on the secondary. I've said it again and again, but I think our two safeties have the ability, to be one of the best tandems in the GLIAC. And that's saying a lot. I think Ashton's got a really, really good safety, and there's some other schools too. But our two have the ability to do that. And Brandon Person, he's got the linebacker body, but he runs like a deer. And I'm tired of him hitting on my guys all spring. I can tell you that. And then you got Stephon Willis, who's so rangy. I mean, time and time again, Stephon Willis will play middle of the field and get to either sideline and break up a pass. I'll tell you what, last week he stepped in front of a dig route, and he was probably about 8 yards away as the ball was being released. He steps in front of it and pick six it in practice, and it was such a phenomenal play that he made. I forgot even about correcting or going to the offense. So I'm watching him pick it off in amazement. But those two right there had a great spring. They know where they're supposed to be. They're communicating with one another. So they're a lot of fun. And then, on the edge right there, you got Antonio Eder on one side and Carlton Watkins on the other, who have got their confidence. I think their confidence that they've got help over top a lot. Those two right there are very aggressive and have come a long way in just a short time. And then Wayne Storr. Wayne Storr is a guy that kind of came out of left field, to be honest, and he had a great spring. Made some really nice plays there Saturday in the scrimmage. Is a cover guy that can run, but he's a sure tackler.
Yeah, that's the thing I noticed. He's not afraid to stick his nose in there and make a play.
Not at all. So in the secondary right there, we still got Tim Lewis back there who will be a senior for us. We got three guys that we've signed. We got Trey Scott, who made a nice play in the spring game and is very, very talented. He's right there with Stephon Willis. And then we got Justin Hernstein, another Buckeye Central, talent that, is really, really good. So, we got to figure out how can we get more of these guys on the field, But, the secondary I'm very, very pleased with. I really think we made some great strides right there. And then you move up a level right there in the linebacker position. And, Josh Pribble's a guy that we've talked a lot about here since he's been here with us. Last year he got banged up towards the end of the season and missed, I think, 4 games. That hurt us. We got to keep him healthy. And I think our defensive line is going to be able to do that, which we'll get to here in a second. But, Jesse Stout, I got to say that a week ago I made a comment on the show that, he's about 210. He's got to get bigger and stronger. Well, he corrected me real fast and got on the scales and showed me, Coach Goff, I am 230. So I've been nicknamed.
It's nice that the coaches are paying attention to what you're doing. I mean, the players are paying attention.
Oh, yeah.
The show,
so
the coach talking about me.
But Jesse had a really good spring, and I can pull up right now about 8 clips where he shot the gap and made a tackle for loss in the backfield, and so I'm excited about him. So now we've got somebody right there that can spell Pribble here and there, and when he needs a blow or if he gets banged up, and keep him fresher for a longer period of time in the game. And then, outside of them, you still got the Kyle Finch, who had a good spring until he got banged up about halfway through, nothing major. And then Terry Harper. Terry Harper is going to be a redshirt freshman for us, who about 6'2", 235 from Harvest Prep, who is going to be a name that you call a lot from the press box.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, the young man can lay the wood, So feel really good about our linebacker position right there. And again, those are two positions, secondary and linebacker, that everybody's returning, and we've added a few depth with some red shirts here or there. So, I think those two spots right there is why we think coming out of spring that the defense has gotten a lot better, because those two groups have. Up front with the defensive line, you got Joe Collard, who's been a staple.
Exactly.
He's probably been the only staple around here.
Yeah, you're probably right. Absolutely.
But we got Joe Collard, who's obviously had a great spring. I mean, Joe is Joe. He's a good player, and he's kind of a force to reckon with. And then you got Bill McKay, who we jokingly call Bill Joe's little brother.
Yeah.
Those two are brothers. You don't see one without the other. Bill had a great spring. Bill played a little bit for us last year as a true freshman. Had a great off season. Bill's one of those young men who's determined. He's just determined. He's relentless. He's not going to stop until he gets off the blocker and makes a play. So, those two right there had a really good spring. And then you got the Cody 7 defensive lineman.
Yes.
That was our number one area to improve upon. And we did that. So we've got some guys going to be coming in here as true freshmen and as transfers that are going to compete for some playing time and even some starting positions right there. And we've added nice size right there that I think when you see us take the field in the fall, that defensive line is going to look like a GLIAC defensive line.
Yeah, and one thing you talk about here is some of the experience you got coming back. When we look back at like our season preview show last fall, we didn't speak much about experience, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So it's nice to be able to be saying that.
No, you didn't know anybody's names, and I had just learned some of the names.
Yes, exactly.
So no, it is nice to have experience, and we've talked about that around here for quite some time. I think next year we're only going to have 8 seniors, but we are going to have a good junior class. We're going to have a good sophomore class with some experience. So, it's right around the corner where we'll be talking, hey, Coach, it's nice to have 25 seniors, isn't it?
Yeah, no doubt, absolutely.
So we're almost there. I'm very excited about that. But, I'm excited about this football team. I'm very excited about the defense side of the ball.
Well, now let's transition to the offensive side of the ball. Everybody knows that the QB battle is going to be key in the spring. You lose Dan Pitts after last year. He had a great second half of the season last year.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be nice to have him again this year, but we don't. So we got these 3 young men here who've been in with you all spring. Not a lot of experience, no experience actually on the field, as you said, but doing some things in practice, learning the offense, picking up things. You talked about Tyler Irwin coming in, talking to you on his own time, a day off, about things he wanted to make sure he was doing properly. So talk a little bit about the quarterback competition, and we'll, out of that, we'll talk about some of the other positions.
Yeah, we'll start there with quarterback. We got Joey Friendo we brought in at mid-year, and then we got the 2 freshman quarterbacks, Nick Merrick being a redshirt freshman next year, and then Tyler Arnold will actually be a sophomore for us. But all 3 young men are very, very smart young men. All of them maintain above a 3.0 or even a 3.5, and they want to do good. They want to please me. They want to make my life easier.
Yeah.
It is. I would love to have Dan Pitts back again. I think Dan Pitts ended the season playing really good football. You know what? Dan's been around. Dan's been around, kind of. I guess you can call it a student coach. And I've seen some of the quarterbacks ask him a question or two, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this is your first read, and here's why." And sometimes.
Well, that's nice that he does it that way too. Look to the X first.
Yeah, exactly.
Look to the X first because of.
Well,
nice.
Dan wants to be a coach, and that's why he's been around a lot during the spring. And Dan's going to make a good coach because he's got that. He's got that way of reaching a young man where it's not just this is what you do and here's how. He's got that easy to talk to relationship type guy, and
he's quirky, but he's a whole heck of a lot of fun.
He is a lot of fun. So these 3 quarterbacks, I'm excited about them, and I think what they do in the off season, and then obviously there in that first week of fall camp is going to mean a lot as to who wins that starting job.
Well, we got to have people to throw the ball to, and last time we talked, you gloated about Pedro Correa and the strides he has made this spring. Talk about him as well as some of the other receiving corps.
Yeah, Pedro's a young man that it seems like he's always got a guy right there battling for a position, and we've moved him to another position here or there, but he always comes out on top. He's just a hard worker. He's a young man that you would adopt him if you could. He's just yes sir, no sir, does everything the right way, got a great personality. He's another quirky guy. He'll come in here wearing his Florida fluorescent pink sunglasses with his, fluorescent green shorts, and I'm asking him, gosh, son, that kills the eyes. But he's a lot of fun to be around. He's a hard worker. He had a great spring. He really did. Going into spring, there was a big battle right there for that position. And, I got to say, come out of spring, he's definitely in the lead. But he's got to maintain that.
Sure.
It'd be the starter. We don't really name starters coming out of spring. But he's a young man that made a big play in the spring game. He's made plays like that throughout spring. He just finds a way to get it done.
He's valuable as your holder too, in your extra points and field goals.
He's our holder. He's a former quarterback. In high school, so he understands the position and what he's got to do in order to get open versus man or zone. And then inside of him on that side, you've got Jeremy Armstrong. We've already talked about a little bit. He had a good spring. Joe Lofton. Joe Lofton is a young man who really might have had the best spring out of all the receivers. Joe's a real strong young man. He's going to be one of our seniors next year.
We went from Joseph to Joe, I noticed. He was Joseph all year last year in the program, and then the spring game he was Joe. So what kind of change he made, but he went from Joseph to Joe. But I liked what he did last year for you as well.
At least he's not changed his name to, World Peace.
Yeah.
But no, Joe had a great spring, and he's a real strong young man. And I'll tell you what, we messed around in spring putting his hand on the ground at tight end position some too.
Really?
Which would give defenses fits. They don't know if we're in true 10 personnel or 11 personnel.
Mm-hmm.
But Joe is, he's kind of our utility player. He's not flashy. He's not the fastest guy in the world. He probably is one of the strongest receivers on the team. He's a very strong young man, and that's why we have the ability to put his hand on the ground to get that mismatch maybe with that outside linebacker or a strong safety. But Joe had a great spring. Really excited about him. And then moving to our slot receiver right there, you got Tyler Jones, who's played a lot of football around here for us, and then Jacob Snyder. I tell you what, Jacob Snyder is pushing Tyler, for every bit, and Jacob is, I think he wore number 11. He wore number 11 in the spring game.
Yep.
And, he's the guy that you really want the ball in his hands. He's got the potential to score on every play. He is a tough grit football player. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. He will block you off the field, and he'll go across the middle and catch the ball in traffic.
It's kind of hard to keep those guys off the field, isn't it?
It really is. And I think we talked about this on our last show. Hey, competition breeds success.
Exactly.
And when you got a guy who's behind you making those type of plays, and you see the coaches are starting to give him more and more reps, it ups your game.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the last receiver I'll comment about is Tony Shedd. Tony Shedd, you saw that again Saturday. He's a young man with the ball in his hands. He's a difference maker.
I think it was the first receiver's name we called in the ball game.
Yeah, it probably was. And I know one of the first plays, he dropped the ball. That wasn't a good way to call his name. But you know what? He was so amped up and excited to finally be able to get on the field and play because we redshirted him last year that he was couldn't control himself.
I think he was one of the young men who was out there dancing quite a bit in the warm-ups.
Probably so.
I can see a lot of the guys out there. You can tell they're ramped up and ready to go.
Yeah, Tony's going to be a guy that you're going to call his name a lot next year. We're going to have a lot of fun with him on the offense side of the ball. He was highly recruited. He had an offer from Grand Valley. And just liked our style of play and liked the facilities here, and I'm glad we got him.
All right, how about the running backs?
Running backs, running backs kind of an odd topic here in spring ball because we had so many running backs miss spring ball.
Yeah, exactly.
Division II rules, they allow you, 10 semesters to play. And Dominic White was approaching his last semester, so he went part-time in the spring. He sat out the spring, and he'll go full-time again in the fall, so he'll be a senior for us.
Okay.
And Dominic White's a real powerful running back that we missed here in the spring. Another running back is James Hall. James Hall tore his ACL last year, played a full game and a half on that torn ACL because nobody knew it was torn. He thought he had just tweaked his MCL or something. So tough young man. And James Hall stayed out this spring and also kind of acted as that student coach as well. He was back there with Coach Noogie, the running backs, and kind of tell him, hey, here's why you needed to do this. Here's why you need to do that. And he helped a lot. So we missed those two in the spring. Now that left a lot of reps for Jeremy Ortiz, who had a good spring. And then Patrick Boggs, who's going to be a sophomore for us, and then Tori Nicholson. My opinion, Tori Nicholson probably had the best spring out of all those guys.
I thought he looked great in the spring game. He ran the ball just super hard, and it was a load to bring down.
He's a powerful kid. He's got the God-given ability to kind of be running like the Powell kid at Notre Dame last year. Just a real strong physical runner. And, he's a young man that will probably hand the ball off to more, and that way, if anytime we're in our 20 personnel, they can't just sit there and think he's always going to lead block.
Sure, absolutely.
Because he's got that talent. And then Patrick Boggs, another big, strong young man, and he came up to me after the spring game there Saturday and said, Coach, I had so much fun because I got to learn all the plays in spring. And I laughed because, he spent most of the fall on the scout team. And the scout team is tough. It's really tough. They don't learn the offense. They're running cards for the defense, and they're running our opponent's offense, basically. So, the running back, with missing those two, it probably did the program, a lot of good because we got those three a lot of reps in spring football. Those guys ended on a high note. And then you move up front to the offensive line, and kind of the same thing right there. You had Gage Gorman. He's getting cleared this Wednesday. He's had a torn ACL from the season. Happened at Michigan Tech, second game of the season. Mitch Marshall, he sat out the spring so he could go his senior season. And then you had, with Marcello Brown getting his concussion, and then the injury to Max Pollum. Well, real fast, we're down 5 offensive linemen. So, those guys, the 2 tackles, they went about 2.5 weeks. They just got hurt right before the spring game, and that's why we had to shuffle the offensive front line a little bit. But, I'm really excited about those guys. I think Lorenzo Lepe had a great spring, I think Dustin Craig did a great job kind of telling those guys, hey, we make these calls and here's why, and sorting things out. You forget about that center sometimes, as that's really your second quarterback.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's probably the second most important position on the entire football team. So, Dustin, I felt like had a really good spring. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, always. And then Bobby Gay. Bobby Gay is really good at his pass sets. we got to get him really good at blocking downfield and open space.
Okay. Yeah.